So this is the finance project that you're going to be working on, and I just wanted to go over it a little bit just so you kind of know what to expect. So let's start with the big yellow box. So before you do anything else, list the members of your group up here, and then do File Save As and replace the LNs, so LN1, LN2, LN3, and LN4, with the last names of the people in your group. Down here we have instructions for submitting the assignment. You're only going to turn in one copy. Only one person needs to email that in, but that person does need to email both the instructor and all of the other group members the project. All right, and then there's some instructions down below. I'll let you read through all of those, and we'll kind of go through some of them in this video. But the first one I want to make note of, so please don't turn in any work that is not your own or work from a previous semester. So your project should be the exact file you are emailed, and only your group's work on that. It's a digital file, so it's very easy to find if people have been cheating, so please don't. All right, so let's jump right in. All right, so in this project is about investing, and so in this project there are 4 5-year time periods, so a span of 20 years over which you'll be saving money by investing it. And each time period has a goal, a method, and an allocation. So this first 5-year time period, everything's going to go in the savings account. We've got a starting balance of $2,000 and a goal of $15,000, at least in this example. Different classes will get different amounts of money, so don't worry if these numbers don't match the project you were emailed. The basic idea of the project will remain the same, but in this example, we're starting with $2,000 and we want to finish up with $15,000. And all of that money is going to go into a savings account. So what we need to do is find a rate for a savings account. So you can go online, you can go to a bank that you use, or just Google savings accounts rates and look for one, and you want to include the link here to that bank. So don't link Google or Yahoo, but link whatever the bank is. So Bank of America, Arvest, Ally, whatever. And you'll type that rate in here. Now do be careful when you type in the rate because Excel will change that to a percentage. So if your rate is 0.03%, then and you typed in 0.03, then Excel would see that as 3% rather than 0.03%. So you'd need to type in 0.0003 to get 0.3%. So then you want to figure out what your payment needs to be to get to the ending balance. Now, for the rate that you find, generally what you're going to find is an APY, which doesn't tell us anything about how often interest is compounded. So what we're going to do for this project, since we need to know how often it's compounded, we're just going to assume everything is monthly. So all payments, all interest, everything in this project, we're just going to assume is monthly just for simplicity. Okay? All right, so that's the end of the first 5-year period. Move on to the second 5-year period. Your starting balance here should be what you ended with in the last period. And you're going to take that amount of money and you're going to split it up into savings and CD. So you're going to take your total ending balance from the last period, put 60% of that money in the savings account, 40% into a CD. CD stands for Certificate of Deposit. It's a type of account where you put money in the bank and you leave it sit for some specified time period. So if you're going to do a 5-year CD, you would put the money in the bank and the bank would give you a higher rate because you've guaranteed them that you will not touch the money for 5 years. So you're going to be putting money in, but you're not going to be making payments on that CD. You just put money in and let it grow with whatever the interest is. So same thing here, you'll look up a CD rate online. Could be the same bank as your savings account, doesn't have to be. But same idea, we'll assume interest is compounded monthly for your CD. All right, we want a goal of $45,000 total between these two things, not $45,000 each. So what you'll need to do is figure out what your ending balances need to be so that you can meet your goal of $45,000. Okay, now the initial split was 60-40, 60% savings, 40% CD. That will not be the ending balance because you're putting more money, payments into your savings and not into your CD, so the savings is going to grow a lot more. So it won't maintain that 60-40 split. So you won't be able to figure out the ending balances just by finding 60% and 40% of $45,000. All right, so moving on to the next time periods, we're adding in stocks and ETFs. Now, stocks you're probably familiar with. You purchase shares of a company, and based on how the company does, the value of those shares goes up or down. ETFs are exchange-traded funds, and they're similar except that you're not purchasing shares of a company, you're purchasing shares in a sector. So rather than investing in Apple, for example, which is a technology company, you can invest in the technology select sector. So you're investing in kind of a lot of companies that have to do with technology. So it's a little bit less volatile because it's so many different companies. So if Apple crashed, the technology select sector would go down if Apple is a part of it, but not nearly as much as if you had all of your money in Apple directly. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick 4 ETFs and 4 stocks, and there's some instructions up here on how to figure that out. Let's say we wanted to select the financial select sector, so that's ETF number 2. So we're going to go down here, and for our first ETF, we want that to be ETF number 2. So I type a 2 in there and hit enter. It's the financial select sector. And so these numbers here, we looked through past performance of this ETF and took a guess at what we thought it was going to do. So we thought there would be a 25% chance that it would go down by 1.8%, 50% chance that it would go up by 2%, and a 25% chance that it would go up by 4.2%. So what we want to do is find the expected rate. Oops, that number was left over. So we want to find the expected rate. And to find the expected rate, what we want to do is find the expected value. So you probably remember the word expected from the last unit. Expected value, we had our X's and our P's in that table. Looks just like this thing up here. So multiply these together, add across, and that will give you your expected value. Now when you multiply them, you want to do that as decimals rather than as the percentages that they are. And that'll give you the expected rate. Now the expected rate is what we expect to happen over the next 5 years, but of course it's the stock market. We have no idea what's actually going to happen. So you can get the actual rate as well. And so the actual rate comes from the ETF actual sheet. It's just a random number generated selection for the actual rate. So let's see what we would have. So I'm going to put a 2 there, and 2% is what we get. So in ETF number 1, the actual rate, 2%. So that's 0.02. That's how we would type that in. So 2%. And then we would do that for 3 more ETFs. ETF2, ETF3, and ETF4. Now on that ETF actual sheet, notice only enter it once, because you'll get a different number if you do it more than once. So I typed 2 in once and I got my answer. That's all I need to do. Notice it's already changed because it's a random number generator. All right, so then we get to the third 5 years. We've got a couple goals here. Again, these goals might be different, but that's okay. But in this version, savings to 40,000, expected overall to 115. We're going to take the ending balance from the last time and split that up. 30%, 30%, 40%, savings account, CD, and ETFs. So those will go right here. You looked at 4 ETFs, but you're only going to choose one to invest in, and you're going to choose the one with the highest expected rate, because that's the one you expect to do the best. You don't want to choose the highest actual, because what that would say is that you can see into the future 5 years, and you probably can't. So we want to choose the one with the best expected rate. All right. So for ETF, we will have a different expected and actual rate. For savings and CD, those will be the same, however. So savings expected rate and actual rate will be the same for CD. And then expected ending balance and actual ending balance for savings and CD will be the same as well. So those will only be different for the ETF. The expected and actual ending will be different. Okay? All right, so fill out all of that information, and then we move on to stocks. So same idea here. We'll pick some stocks from that same stock list here. Let's say we want to invest in General Electric. So stock 1, that was number 6. Got our numbers here. Find our expected rate. Find the actual rate from the stock actual sheet way down here. So negative 2%, that's no good, but that's okay. Doesn't matter how well your investments do as long as all your math is correct. All right, so we'll do that with 4 stocks, and then we'll move on to the fourth 5 years. So fourth 5 years, got a couple more goals listed up here, and then the allocation for the investments, how we're going to invest whatever the balance was from the last time period. Same thing as before, savings and CD, your expected and actuals will be the same. And then for ETFs and stocks, the expected and actuals will be different. But you do the same thing, you're only going to choose your best stock, the one with the highest expected rate to invest in. Then the last box here is how much money was earned through the investments over 20 years. Well, our goal, we're hoping to get to $225,000. Depending on the performance of your ETFs and stocks, you might get there, you might not. Either way, that number will not be the answer right here. The amount earned through investments is not the total ending account balance, it's how much was earned. So you need to figure out how much money you put in and then how much money is in there and find the difference between those two things. That's how you find out how much you've earned through investments. So that's the project in a nutshell. There's a lot to it. So if you have any questions at all, be sure to email your instructor. But that's how the project works. So good luck, and you'll be receiving information on the due date and who is in your group from your instructor.